more importantly, really the most important thing. Did you see The Phantom Menace in theater?
Yeah.
Okay. Remember the first time? I don't know if this happened in your theater or when you saw it. I saw it. I saw it twice opening night. I saw it during the day and I saw it in the evening. I was in California at the time, and I actually saw it in Hollywood. I saw it at Universal City Walk. The second time around at night. The first time R2D2 makes his appearance on screen, people clapped. They were like, "Yay!" And that was
Yep.
it. We were done. Do you remember a few years ago when you and I and Gavin reviewed Spider-Man No Way Home, and I did a bit about people clapping like seals?
Yep.
But if you'll recall, my frustration was the continued clapping at things that they knew were going to be in the movie. Like, I remember, as I've watched the clip a number of times, because I think me screaming and Jonas go to bed is hilarious as I'm shaking him. What can I say? I find myself funny. But my
Well,
argument,
somebody has to, right?
indeed, my argument at the time wasn't so much the clapping as it was like when Daredevil shows up. Well, you don't know Daredevil's in the movie until it happens, and so, oh my gosh, Daredevil, Netflix, synergy, continuity, amazing. Everyone claps. When the Green Goblin showed up, who was, or rather, when Dr. Octopus shows up, who's prominently featured on the poster and in the trailer, I was like, why are we clapping for this? When the Hobgoblin, or the Green Goblin showed up, I was like, you can kind of see the pumpkin bomb. We know he's in the movie. I think it had been already spoiled by that point. I'm like, why are we cheering for this?
Yep.
We didn't know Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were going to be in the movie. So when they showed up, I could understand the clapping. The point of it is that it didn't cause a mosh pit to break out. People like, yay, the thing we like, we saw the thing, and great. Avengers Endgame, when Captain America finally gets to say Avengers Assemble, the whole theater, hooray! And then we watch the movie. I don't mind people reacting to something that's happening on screen. I think, there are certain moments. Well, I have argued in the past this is not a live performance. I can't hear you. I don't know why you're showing live. I don't know why you're showing appropriate appreciation.
I've heard that argument before. My brother makes it all the time. He tends to limit it to how you react after the movie. Like, don't clap over the credits.
But look, if it evokes an emotional reaction and you're having kind of a crowd moment, fine. The once in a while that it happens, Judge Radledge will allow it. There are limits to this sort of thing. And, it's funny. My son, Jonas, he walked up to me and he said, he raised his fist at me like he wanted to fight, like he was a little Notre Dame fighting Irish. He raised his fist at me and he leaned in, and I was like, you ready to fucking go? I'm like, I'll fucking knock you right out. I'll send you to your mother in a box. He was like, Flint and Steel. I'm like, oh, I don't know what that is. He was like, it's from the Minecraft movie. And he went outside to go do a chore I'd asked him to do, and he comes back in, and he looks at me, and I looked at him, and we locked eyes, and he said, chicken jockey? And I don't know if he was having a stroke, if he had developed a sort of tick. He mumbled something in a weird voice. I don't know what you're saying. He's like,
he begins speaking in tongues like you do.
He said, chicken jockey? And I went, are you sick, son? Do you need me to take you to the hospital? And he went, Flint and Steel. And I'm like, oh, he's doing stuff from this Minecraft movie. Okay, I get that. Look, this is like after I saw Piece by Piece, and I walked around telling everyone that I was born in the mud, because that's a line from the movie. And we all do this. We all kind of do little bits of dialogue. But he kept doing it. It's fine. He's an 11-year-old boy almost.
He should be quoting Monty Python and the Holy Grail by this point instead of nonsense chicken memes.
My point is, we all have a thing that we quote. Many things we quote. I have a T-shirt that says I speak fluent movie quotes.
That is a a language you speak.
Yeah. So this is all fine. we went to the movie. His sister, and I. We sat down, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said, "Flint and steel," and I'm like, "All right." And later in the
Which one did you
movie,
threaten him to, like, you know what? You really got to knock this off.
no, because he is my son, and he is me, and I am a scotch. So I get it, and life is to be enjoyed, Robert. Despite contrary opinions, life is to be enjoyed. So anyway, the movie starts. He shuts the fuck up, as all good boys should do. And then Jack Black says it in the movie. He says, "Flint and steel." And he looked at me and he does the Leonardo DiCaprio thing. He's like, That was it. That was his whole reaction to it. And I laughed because he's funny. And the bit's funny. Later on, he's not your son. I can laugh at these things. These things are funny to me.
Okay.
Later on, Jason Momoa gets in a wrestling ring and he fights what appears to be a small Frankenstein baby on a blocky chicken. And he says the phrase "chicken jockey." And Jonas does Leonardo DiCaprio again. He's like, it's like he's elbowing me. He's like, he said the thing. And I'm like, that's great.
The thing means nothing to me, son. Just shut up.
That was it. That was his whole reaction. The theater around me seemed to have gotten a bigger kick out of that than that was ever going to register with me. In my theater on a Sunday afternoon, the reactions to the movie were mostly appropriate. People laughed, people cried, people hurled. The kids around me definitely responded to the movie positively. I heard a couple of people I had a full theater on like a 12:30 in the afternoon on a Sunday. The kids, like I said, there were some adults kind of mumbling to themselves, some kids that were kind of talking, but like that tends to happen in kids' movies that are full. Kids, for the most part, don't know when to shut up.
But you know what you're getting into when you watch one of those under those circumstances.
Yeah, and I can kind of tune it out. It wasn't that bad. But that was my theater experience. I wake up this morning, and there's a news item, and I'm going to put this on screen. And this might not move you in a way, but it really bothered me, and it was something that I wanted to talk about.
Okay?
Alrighty. Because I do think it's worth discussing on kind of a macro level. This comes from Comic Book Resources. A Minecraft
website of dubious quality in general, but for the sake of this one, we'll let it go.
Yeah. Their opinion on movies and the incessant shilling is not what's being discussed here. The headline reads: A Minecraft movie. Cops remove kids from theater for chicken jockey scene reaction in viral video. A Minecraft movie may be number one at the box office this weekend, but for some kids at a screening posted to social media, the weekend meant being escorted out of a movie theater by the police. The chicken jockey scene proved to be a point of excitement for the young people at a screening shown in a 40-second clip online. Discussing Filminex posted the clip here. Let me stop sharing it so I can share the actual clip here. So this is what's currently on formerly known as Twitter. Where does it go? Okay. All right. So here it is. This is the clip in question. And when I saw it, again, Phantom Menace, the new Star Wars movies, Avengers Endgame. I have been to see some movies. Not exactly the Rocky Horror Picture Show, but here we go. This is what we're dealing with in the world right now. Chicken
Okay, Stitch.
No.
Here's the problem.
Oh, there's a
That's
lot of problems.
that's not an isolated incident.
Also true.
So the article goes on. Put this back up on screen. I used to not do stuff like this because it just wasn't smooth and that bothered me. And then I started watching other people do what we do, and get exponentially more views. And now I don't care anymore. Apparently, production can just be crap, and it's perfectly fine. Um, as the kids are escorted from the theaters by cops and by other moviegoers, cell phones in hand, record their exit, singing "Na na na, hey hey, goodbye, goodbye." Damn it! Oh my god!
I'm begging you to get an ad blocker.
I know. Son of a bitch. All right, I can't do this anymore. So anyway, I got something better here. Reports indicate that screenings of a Minecraft movie have been marked by disruptive behavior from younger audiences, leading to interventions by cinema staff and law enforcement.
Okay, so my youngest brother worked at our local movie theater for less than a year, but a number of months. Like, was there for a while. He avoided, I think, Avengers Endgame, but he was there for Beauty and the Beast, the live action.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about that like it was 9/11. Not quite that dramatic, but like the lines of families, and if you're working concessions, that means kids, and we have the gimmicky, they've all got the gimmicky thing. Like, here, buy this thing. It's a small, it's an appropriate size popcorn. It's a drink. It's whatever. But you have to make those all individually. He made so many of those, and then occasionally, like, please come help clean up the aftermath of this catastrophe.
So anyway,
hang on. By all accounts, this is worse. The pictures from like theater workers showing the aftermath of this, it's bizarre. Like, you've got people desperately trying to engage in a quasi group activity, but they're all antisocial enough to just like not care about anything.
Yeah, I'm getting to that. And that's 2017. Look at where we are now.
I'm talking about this. I'm talking about this one.
Okay.
Like, theater workers are posting the aftermath of screenings of the Minecraft movie. It's
okay. Hold that thought. In response, cinemas in the UK, such as Real and Cineworld, have implemented stricter monitoring and emphasized a zero-tolerance policy towards disruptive behavior, warning that violators may be ejected or face police involvement. Similarly, the Township Theater in Washington Township, New Jersey, introduced a policy requiring parents to accompany their children to screenings after incidents of vandalism and unacceptable behavior by unsupervised minors. These incidents have sparked debate among parents and moviegoers. Some view the enthusiastic reactions as a testament to the film's engagement with its audience. It's not. There's
not really.
There's a much worse explanation. While others consider such behavior disruptive and inconsiderate. Yeah, no shit. Overall, the film's release has highlighted differing expectations regarding cinema etiquette, and especially during youth-targeted movies. Here's what I want to say. When I had kids, I movie trained them from birth. Started with the drive-in, okay? I mean, obviously, you don't take toddlers, you don't take infants, but when they got to be slightly older, to get them used to the movie-going experience, Melissa and I would take them to the drive-in. There was zero expectation that kids of a walking age were going to be able to engage with the movie in a way that was appropriate. They're fucking toddlers, okay? You should expect your children to be toddlers. So we will allow them they could run around a little bit. They can move around in the car. We were not disrupting other people. That's why we went to the drive-in. But we got them used to going to understand what the movies is like. And we could start to instill some degree of appropriate behavior so they would understand. But there are limits to this. Again, what's the word I'm looking for? Attention spans and such are not are not great when you're that age. When they got to be a little bit older, I would take them to age-appropriate movies, Pixar movies, Disney cartoons, etc. things like How to Train Your Dragon or
Sorry, I just had a shuddering premonition.
what's the other one that you hated? Angry Birds. I remember taking them to the Angry Birds movie. I
I
remember
did
these
not
because we
care for
reviewed
the
them.
Angry Birds movie. No, that's true.
Kung Fu Panda. And again, manage your expectations, understand what age you're dealing with. You teach them you have to be quiet in the theater, but you're only going to get so much, and the attention spans are only going to go so far. You sit them down, you get them food, you set an expectation. Occasionally, Melissa or I would have to take them out of the theater because it was too much, or they had to pee, or whatever the case was. They got to be a little bit older, started taking them to more movies. Again, you start to reinforce you have to be quiet in the movie theater. You can react, you can ask me a question, tell me if you go to the bathroom, but you can't be screaming and yelling. They're now 11 and 14, and they know how to act in a theater. This is how parenting works. And when I see articles like this, and the reason why I'm making such a big deal about it, and I can get off my soapbox after this, is this doesn't just feel like a lack of appropriate parenting for this generation. This feels like at least 2 generations of bad parenting. 2 generations,
Probably.
at least 2 generations of token children bearing. Look at this prize that I have. Look at this little dolly that I have that I dress up and I show everyone and then fucking neglect, while I do whatever. This to me feels,
Look good for the Instagram reel, then go away.
I don't know how far back you want to go, even if this predates the internet, but my parents are, I believe, boomers. They are in their 70s now.
Give or take. And that's about
50.
that, yeah. There's a generation after the boomers, but before Gen X, and I think it's the silent generation is what they're referred to, but don't quote me on that.
Basically, you have boomers, Gen X, then millennials, I believe it is.
Generally, yeah. In broad swaths, that's how it breaks down.
And I have to assume this probably starts with millennial parents. And it really bothers me because we're not just seeing like antisocial, immature behavior in settings like this. Like, have you talked to a teacher lately? They can't manage their classrooms, and you can blame it somewhat on the effect of the lockdowns from COVID. But
it didn't help, but we're also 4 years removed from that at this point.
Right. This is 2 or 3 generations of not properly socializing your children, not letting them be around other kids in a way that teaches children to interact with each other appropriately. Between the helicopter, we're either over-parenting or under-parenting. It's like somewhere in the last 30 years or so, we lost sort of that middle ground appropriate parenting where you're either lawnmower / helicopter parenting, that's over-parenting, where kids can't function because everything is done for them or around them. So by the time they get to be adults, they're screaming, I have social anxiety and I'm just a baby. Meanwhile, they're 25. Or abject neglect to where the kids are growing up and becoming feral animals. And that's why this bothers me as much as it does, because like if this is where we're at now, imagine where we're going to be in another generation. Like,
the divide is going to be very stark.
It's funny because we talk a lot on here around this back to what we talk about here, which is movies and the theatrical experience. We talk endlessly about we don't want movies to go away. How are we going to have movies if people don't know how to behave in them? Stuff leaves. Like if you can't have places of social interaction, it's funny. I've been watching a lot of these like collection of TikTok videos that are now on, which my son begged me not to be one of those people. I was like, I could do this. I could take collections of TikTok, do minor bridging, narration, and post it as my own content. And he was like, please, Father, please, don't be that guy. There's my kids trying to keep me on the moral side of the fence.
There's no morality in social media.
So anyway, one of the big things I saw today was his collections of TikTok videos of women lamenting that men have left the gym. Why did men leave the gym?
Because we
you
got
kept
sick of you making videos and then publicly shaming us for glancing your direction every now and then
yeah.
when you're wearing shorts pulled up to your crotch.
Well, it doesn't matter what they're wearing. You look around. I tend to look around when I'm doing anything.
Yeah.
You might just look in a woman's direction. You might be staring at her, but you're probably thinking, yum, yum, bumblebee, tuna. God knows I am half the time. Or
That makes sense as your inner monologue, believe it or not.
it absolutely does. I will absolutely stare dead on like I'm going to murder somebody. And all the time it's going, yum, yum, bumblebee, tuna. Anyway, but and then the woman thinks you're a stalker. So the guys have just fucking given up apparently en masse.
Well,
And
here's the thing. It's one thing
mm-hmm,
for a woman to think you're a bit of a creep.
mm-hmm,
Guys, we can live with that. I'm going to speak for men here, okay?
okay,
I don't do this very often, but Mark, if I'm wrong, you tell me I'm wrong.
you know I will.
Most of us, I dare say all of us, can live with a woman giving us a disgusted look or
Mm-hmm.
thinking we're a little bit weird
Oh god, if we even bother
because,
to acknowledge it at all.
yeah, because we had one weird interaction. I can live with that.
Yeah.
Like especially if it's the gym when, I'm doubled over after a hard cardio session and your butt is in my eye line.
Yeah.
If you think I'm staring at you, even if I'm not, I don't care that much. Like I'm probably never going to see you again. If you want to actually talk and say like, "Hey, are you staring at me?" No, I'm not really, but if you want me to turn around, I will.
Staring at you, I don't even know where I am right now.
Yeah, like I'm very lightheaded. Oxygen's not getting up here at the moment. Just give me
Right.
a minute. But we can have that conversation briefly, and if you go away from it going, you know what, I don't care much for that guy. If I come away from it going, you know what, whatever, I don't care much for you. You work out over there, I work out over here. We probably don't overlap each other ever again. It's not a big deal, believe it
Right.
or not. Humans do this all the time. When you've decided to video this entire exchange, post it on all your social media accounts and go, this guy is the creepiest person that ever lived. And then because this is what we do, you get a bunch of likes. It goes kind of viral, and suddenly I'm
Out of a job.
posted everywhere. Like
Yeah.
that's where we kind of draw the line. Like again, if you think I'm weird, or you're
Yeah.
like, you know what, work out on the other side of the gym from me, okay,
Okay,
we don't care.
so now we've created a culture where men and women can't fucking interact with each other in public.
Pretty
Lest
much.
somebody take the interaction as offensive and dangerous and the worst thing ever, and then have to take it to other further extremes. We're now passing this on to our children, who can't fucking behave either in public. So you're everyone's like worried about our current. I'm going to say this nicely. Our current financial predicament that we're in, and the looming doom just ahead of us, which will probably be followed by a sunrise and prosperity. But hey,
It's usually how. Hey,
cyclical
it's almost
economic
like
history is hard for people.
it's almost like people can't track patterns, despite that being one of the very few things the human brain is good at. But hey, here we are.
Yeah. We're not here to talk about proven historical economic patterns. Anywho, this is why economies collapse. You don't have people engaging in the economy because they're too afraid to fucking leave the house, or they're incapable of leaving the house because everything is an affront. Everyone misbehaves. No one can interact with each other. So you just order everything off of Amazon and never leave. Fantastic. And then movie theaters collapse. It's funny. I'm originally from Massapequa, Long Island, and somebody put up a TikTok of the Sunrise Mall. The Sunrise Mall used to be a booming place of commerce and social interaction. It was where kids would ride their bikes in the Massapequa Park, Seaford, Farmingdale area, for all of you Long Islanders.
Some
And
very specific information going on there.
and congregate at this mall. There were fast food places, there were comic book stores, there were regular bookstores, there were toy stores, there were places, there was a movie theater. There were places for kids to go and interact in a fairly safe environment. And for a variety of happenstance, changes in technology, clearly changes in social behavior, the post was that the Sunrise Mall is basically vacant. This is part of a bigger trend known as the mall apocalypse, where basically these places of social interaction and commerce have all collapsed into the ground because we're not supporting them anymore for one reason or another.
There's a YouTube channel that's all about like exploring dead or dying malls.
Mm-hmm.
That actually goes into a little bit of history about them too, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, there's one that I'm not going to claim this was the last mall built in the United States, okay? Let me just preface this with that. But I vividly remember when the nearest mall to me, it's actually the movie theater I still go to because it's closest. Well, it's second closest, but the one that's like marginally closer doesn't have stadium seating, and I can't. I'm not gonna put up with that. So, but I have preferences. Okay. Sue me.
I want to get to the end of this so we can move on.
But I remember when that mall opened up.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big deal that it was getting built because before that, the closest one was about a 15-minute drive. That's if you're in the city. I wasn't in the city. I was actually I grew up in the mountains, but that's not a joke. I was actually up a mountain canyon, and I was 10 miles from the nearest grocery store. It was a good time. There's a whole community up there. It wasn't like isolated.
Robert!
I'm moving on. But I remember that mall opening. And it was kind of a big deal. And you used to go there, and it was like getting around was kind of difficult. Like, you're old enough to remember this, Mark. Malls used to be like packed.
Yeah,
like there were.
I just said that.
Yeah, but I go to this one now because again, it's the theater I prefer to go to as a general rule. And like, you can count almost on like your hands how many people are kind of around this big space.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had to rent out one of their former anchor store locations. It's a Target now. It's actually kind of like walled off from the rest of the mall, but that segment is a Target with exterior access. I might have interior. I have to go over there and double check that, but like that's what we're doing with these giant retail spaces.
Right.
These big investments of time, money, and structure.
So to get back to the original point, I took my parenting job seriously. Despite what you or anyone else thinks of my parenting, I have always taken my job as a parent to be my first and foremost, most important job that I have. And I've always been there with my kids, showing them appropriate behavior. I understand, some of what I do may seem odd to people, but doesn't remove the fact that I was there showing them how to behave. They picked up on it, and now my two kids were probably the most behaved children in the fucking theater, and most of the time have been, and are kind of repelled by other kids who don't know how to behave in public. They struggle kind of in school because they are surrounded by kids their own age who act like animals and toddlers. And they look at me and they say, "Father, but why?" And I go, tune into the Minecraft podcast. I'll talk about it. But my point is,
showing your podcast to your kids.
My point is to round this out, and then we'll move on to the plot. This whole thing really bothers me because it's indicative of a bigger problem. We are quickly the social fabric that binds us all together is eroding fast. It is unraveling at rapid speeds. Adults can't be around each other. Children can't be around each other. Adults don't want to be around children. Children don't want to be around adults. Like, how many more times do we have to engage in Lord of the Flies behavior before the actual Lord of the Flies happens to us?
You're aware of the supreme irony of Lord of the Flies, right?
What's that?
That's actually happened a couple of times where like groups of boys wind up isolated on islands.
Mm-hmm.
They never devolve into Lord of the Flies. They actually always do form like moderately functioning groups.
I can't remember. There was something I remember. It was, I don't know if it was like Family Guy or something, where it was like we removed all the women. And yes, and then the men got along just fine. Everything was functional. But my point
well, in fairness, I only bring that up because Lord of the Flies is expressly just a bunch of boys. Like,
no, I understand that, but when I say Lord of the Flies, I think people know what I'm talking about. That might now be a lost reference on people. Who the fuck knows?
People don't read anymore, Mark.
Another thing we've lost. Another thing we've lost is culture.
How many years have you got on this podcast and said books are for burning?
I said it ironically.